And I thought it's better to try and go for it. And so you fail. And I kept that kind of attitude all the way through.
This is Joe Wong. Welcome to the Trap Set, where each week we explore the lives of drummers. I want to play something for you.
Pushing through the market square, so many mothers sighing. News had just come over. We had 5 years left crying.
You're hearing 5 Years by David Bowie, featuring my guest Mick Woody Woodmansey on drums. Born in the northern English city of Driffield, Woody joined Bowie's band during his formative years and helped propel the group to international stardom. Woody's compositionally clever, evocative style helped the post-war generation escape the drudgery of everyday life. Woody and Bowie parted ways in 1973, but Woody continued to play with artists such as Art Garfunkel, Cybernauts, Screen Idols, Dana Gillespie, and his solo project, U-Boat. He recently wrote an autobiography and currently plays with Bowie alum Tony Visconti in the band Holy Holy. I spoke to him in Soho, London, not far from where he cut his teeth with Bowie. Now my conversation with Woody Woodmansey.
I never thought I'd need so many people. Girl my age went off ahead.
When you were a child, did you have dreams of becoming a musician?
No, not at all. No, my first real interest was art. That was about it. That and I was a fast runner at school, so I did a bit for English juniors, doing the 100 meters. And I looked at that and I thought, well, it's not really a career. I could practice and get Olympics, possibly, So that was the first look at what did I want to do in life. Art, I secretly. My parents really weren't into that area of anything to do with art.
Right.
So I secretly entered a competition and won this competition to go to art school, and they were going to pay for everything and whatever. And my parents didn't believe it. I think I was about 11, and so I didn't go to art school.
Really?
Yeah. So
so why did you enter the contest in secret? Would they have been discouraging?
Yeah, they would.
And that sounds like it was probably just out of concern, because as far as they were concerned, there was no way you could ever make a life as an artist.
Yeah, it was very much that.
Yeah.
I guess a bit of it was for my protection, but a bit of it was, it wasn't a reality that you left your hometown. You found a good job. You found a trade in those days. Electrician, plumber, carpenter, or a bank clerk. You know what I mean?
Especially in the North, right?
Yeah, you got into that because that's what all our generations before had done. And it wasn't really, I was at school doing a list of potential careers with a career person, And, it was everything from train driver to, policeman, detective. I could be a detective.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
And they were all crossed off basically by the time I'd finished. There was nothing left. So I was 15 and I'm thinking, God, I've got to join the big grown-up man's world. I've got to be a man. What the heck am I going to do, And I was playing football with some friends in this yard that was full of tractors and combine harvesters. And there was a space in the middle, and I kicked the ball and it shot over these tractors and 6-foot-high nettles, which are stinging plants, right? And they said, you kicked it, you fetch it, So I got a stick and battered my way through, and I think I was 14. And the ball had landed near this building that I hadn't seen for all the machinery and that. And it had a silver door on it, big silver door, and written across it in like kind of graffiti. I mean, this is way back in the 60s, so, but it was graffitied. It said, "The Cave." And this ball was right in front of this door. So I was like, wow. And as I bent down to pick the ball up, I heard music coming through the door. And I thought, wow, that's one hell of a radio. You know, that's one hell of a transistor radio. So I shouted to my mate, "What's in here?" He said, "Oh, that's my..." And I could feel the vibrations through the door hitting my chest, you know. He said, "No, that's my brother. He's in a rhythm and blues band, and they're practicing in there." So I was like, "Oh, interest, you know. Can I get in to have a look?" And he said, "No, you don't get in there unless you're really pretty and you've got a skirt on." You know? So I pestered for 2 weeks, basically.
So you went home and put a skirt on?
Yeah, a bit of makeup, you know, early days, yeah.
Well, that almost sounds like a movie. It's so cinematic that the ball ends up in front of
Yeah,
that.
I mean, wild.
Do you
know?
believe in fate or God or anything like that? Did it feel like the universe was pulling you in that direction?
Oh, I have that every day.
You do?
No, it was just something in, you know, something about it made me curious. I was curious.
So
and I'd obviously the radio was on at home, but they were all like crap songs, you know, to me. So I'd never really got into music at that point. And when they let me in 2 weeks later, they said, "You can come in and watch 2 songs." And that's it. So I stood in there, and it was...
And it was your friend's brother's band rehearsing.
Yeah. And so they were a semi-pro band, you know. But it was only about 20 foot by 10 foot, this building. And they'd built a little stage at one end. There was one red bulb hanging in the middle, and they'd put fishnets on the ceiling, you know, for aesthetics, obviously.
Yeah.
So, and it smelt really badly. It was damp.
Like a cave.
Yeah, like a cave, yeah. And they started playing, they did Off the Hook, the Stones, Off the Hook. And then Howlin' Wolf, Smokestack Lightning, mouth organ and the whole thing just blew me away. I mean, I was really quiet and really shy as a kid, and standing in front of them 6 feet away from this band playing live, I'd never seen a live band. I felt in my head like I was kind of doing a rave. Do you know what I mean? My arms were going, but actually I was just kind of tapping my foot and nodding my head a bit. But to me, it just freed me up somehow. You know,
that's how repressed you were up until that point.
Have been, yeah. Sorry, Mum. Sorry, Dad. But and I just went right at that moment. That's what I want to do. I want to be in a band. I don't care what. I just want to be in a band.
Did you focus in on the drums immediately?
No, we went to the Salvation Army because we heard they were selling second-hand instruments. So we got 3 guitars: a bass guitar, electric one, and acoustic one. They were £2 each. That's how good they were. And the drum kit was 50p in today's money.
50 pence.
50 pence, yeah. And it had been...
For a whole drum kit?
For a whole drum kit. And it was just horrible. The cymbals were bent and the snare, you know, it was cowhide on it, not plastic skins, obviously.
Sure.
Stitched up, and it boomed, and it horrendous noise, but it do you know what I mean? It sounded like a drum kit, and I just sat on that for, you know, we said, right, we're having a practice on Friday. So I took a guitar home, and I sat in the lounge at home on a night, and I just put it on my knee, and it was all out of tune, and I just kind of, I knew you hit the strings. I didn't know what you did with this hand, and it was just horrible. But I was excited because it rehearsal on Friday, you know, so we went and practiced in the cave itself. They let us go in there to practice.
This is with your friends?
Yeah, with my school friends. And they said, "Go on then, play." And I went, "I can't play." You know, and the other was the guitars, and they were playing E, which I've later found out was an E chord, you know, D, A, G. I was like, "What are you doing?" You know, and they said, "Chords, man." I went, "Wow, show me." You know, I thought you just grabbed it and that was it. and your fingers go under the strings and it clicks and the horrible buzzing sounds. And I had it for about 4 minutes, and one of my mates just took it off me and went, "You're rubbish." I couldn't really argue, and then he pulled a pair of sticks out of his back pocket and just handed me them. I went, "You're the drummer." I went, "Cool." And that was it. So I was the drummer.
Did drums make sense to you more immediately?
No, if they'd have said you're playing the banjo or you've got this elastic band, put it between your teeth and go like boing, 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 I would have done that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be in a band. That was it. And I sat probably for about 4 days I knew this hand had to keep going on either the hi-hat or the cymbal, and then this one had to come in every so often, and then the foot the same in between that. That's all I knew, right? So I started, ting, 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 and then every time you hit the snare, this hand stops. That was before getting anywhere near the bass drum. And then one Sunday, about a week later, I was ting, 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 ba, dum, 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 ba, dum, dum. I was like, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And I daren't stop, so I played for about an hour and a half, just ting, ting, ba, ting, 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 ba, ting. And then it was like, oh, hell. I've got a foot, I've got to get that in. Where does that go? Oh, that goes on the, remembering the sounds. Boom, bat, boom, bat. Whoa, a beat, And again, another 2 hours later, I'm still playing that. And then you've got to be a bit more fancy with the bass drum. Boom, boom, ta, boom, ta, boom, boom, And that was it. And then at that point, I went, I can do this.
Right.
I can do this.
Right. I can remember when that first happened with me.
Yeah.
It was the greatest feeling I've ever had, and I've been chasing it ever since. It's like what drug users say about the first hit,
Yeah.
I wonder, do you remember how it felt in your body when you finally got it?
It was just the excitement of knowing that I was actually doing it, that it wasn't for me, and I've later come to think the same thing, that it's not, it's not a gift that you're given from wherever, from on high. It's something that you see, you hear, you have a passion for within yourself. And it's like to get good at that. And you then put the time in. And I think I looked early on at like, what does music do? Why is music? What you're supposed to be doing with it. And for me, it was like, you're supposed to be creating an emotional impact on an audience, on another individual, whether it's live or through record, which is what happened to me standing in front of this semi-pro band. It created such an emotional impact on me, physically, the body, and mentally, and everything else. And for me, that is what you're supposed to do with it. So it's, I then went to learning records, simple things, blues things. It would be 65, 66.
Okay.
It was like learn all the blues things, John Mayall's Blues Breakers, Clapton's early stuff, Jeff Beck. It was learning that stuff, and you really had to get in there and understand it, to be able to play the blues. It was like, they say the white man can't play the blues and all that, but it was like, most of them can't, but if you really get in there and understand what's happening and understand why that pattern works and why, and it's usually simple patterns, and feel it. It taught me feeling, learning the blues, that you feel a song. You go on the internet today, there's like 8,000 drummers with 50,000 videos up there playing 300 notes a second. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, meaningless virtuosity.
Yeah, and it actually does nothing. It creates an impact just from the technique that they're displaying. You can't fail but go, oh crap! Whatever. What is that? What is he doing?
I always say it's like if I were to call myself a poet and then just read a bunch of words really fast.
Yeah,
it doesn't have an impact.
I mean, it's skill, and these guys have obviously put the time in.
Sure.
But for me, they missed the boat somewhere. Do you know what I mean? They didn't get in that cave and
I
have
would
that
agree.
impact on them. They didn't want to play with other guys and create something that's bigger than just, because it's never great art. No matter how fast they go, no matter how many different times they can play and throw it in there so you can't figure out what the heck they're doing. It's never great art. It's, you go on the street and say, have you heard of Joe Beloni? And they go, oh. You go,
Right.
you go, have you heard of Charlie Watts? Have you heard of Keith Moon? Have you heard of, you know, they know those names because those guys, for me, were always a cut above all the others. They understood what they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think they also probably possess an extraordinary amount of musical empathy, right?
Yeah,
Like they understand the other people in the band and understand what to give.
Exactly.
So when did you start developing that? When did you
Tomorrow,
start putting in
I'm
the
going
time?
tomorrow.
Like when did it become central to your identity? When did you say, I'm a musician?
Straight away. You know, before I could do a drum roll, I'd put my sticks in my back pocket and I'd be on the bus late at night with all the drunks leaving the pubs and clubs and whatever. And they'd say, hey kid, you a drummer? You know, yeah. You know, are you any good? Yeah. You know, it was like, that was it. I didn't have anything else. Do you know what I mean? So I just took that. That was going to be me. That was my identity, as you just said. And then it was just putting my finger on vinyl of Hendrix records and Cream records and going, what the heck is he playing? What is Ginger Baker doing? What is Bonham doing? Where I thought, that's a good beat, that's a good drum fill. It went in my library, in my head. I imagine I had a library with all these beats and that in my head. So then later on, as I got to do, you know, original stuff, you kind of go and walk into your library. Somebody plays you a song on acoustic guitar. You're in your library pulling out beats and things and going, that works, that would work, that might work, that fill would be good, this. And then you're pulling it all downstairs and you cram it all together and you apply that to that song.
Small Jean Genie snuck off to the city, strung out on lasers and slashback blazers, and ate all your razors while pulling the waiters, talking about Monroe and walking on Snow White. New York's a go-go and everything tastes nice. Poor little greenie. Ooh. Get back on it. Jean Genie lives on his back. Jean Genie loves Jean.
So you left school at 16?
15.
15?
Yeah.
And what was your next step?
It was get a job, basically. And I followed the trade thing. Because, the idea of it being going to make it at that point was a long way off. I hadn't got the skills together enough to feel that confident. So I became a plumber and hated it. You could have 3 showers and you still smelt like a plumber. For me, I could still smell it. So, and the final straw on that was stood in the middle of the high street where I was born, where all the girls left for their lunchtime snacks and whatever. And I'm stood in the middle of the road with what they call drain rods, where you're joining all these rods together, unblocking the drains. Pulling it out with toilet paper hanging off it, and I'm trying to look cool. Do you know what I mean? It was a good practice to keep you cool.
I guess a drain rod is like vaguely phallic in the same way that a guitar is, but it doesn't have the same allure.
Not quite, no. So I went, that's it. This is not good for my image. So I finished there. I heard my friends were working in this factory, so I went down there. And luckily, the guy, the foreman who hired people, was a singer in the local band, in the local clubs and that. And he said, you're a drummer, aren't you? And I was like, so through the whole interview, we talked music, and he went, yeah, you'd work really good in this place. So I got the job. So I was in the factory, and then we were, we were starting to get fairly good, supporting other bands in the area. Then the best band in our town was a band called the Roadrunners. This is the semi-pro band that I'd seen. So then one day, it was the time when Vietnam was on. So we read about all the demonstrations and all that in America. And in our town, they just closed our coffee bar. So a couple of us got together and got all the kids in the street with placards going, "We want a coffee bar." That was our version of
that was your protest.
That was our protest. You know what I mean? We stopped the traffic. The local police came down, and it was cool. And I was stood at the front of this procession with a board, and the Roadrunners van just pulled up in front and went, "Woody, get in." So I handed the card, and I got in, and they said, "We want you to be our drummer. Johnny can't play anymore, and you're our drummer." So for me, that was a big, oh my God. And these guys were good. They were good musicians. They'd been doing it for years. So I had a steep learning curve, basically, to get all that together, sit and listen to the records that they were doing, learn it all. And I'd watched their drummer. He was a really good drummer, actually. So I'd already learnt a bit off him. So I started to apply that to these songs. And we got quite a good little following in the area. We'd do like 3 nights a week, every week. So it was semi-pro, still working in the factory. And then it was when open air festivals first started. We'd had Woodstock and Isle of Wight, maybe something else. And in Hull, the nearest city to us, they had an open air festival, and the Roadrunners were booked to play on it. And a band called the Rats, and the Rats were the band in Yorkshire, really. There was the Rats and a band called the Mandrakes, who had Robert Palmer, was the front man of that band. So there was always a battle between the Rats and the Mandrakes. And Mick Ronson was the guitarist in the Rats. And apparently I learnt later he'd come to watch me play, and I went to see him play. I'd heard about him, but I'd never seen him play. We didn't meet on that festival, but then I went back to the factory, and one Sunday I was doing overtime, and these 5 guys just walked in. They'd got through security somehow, and they were stood in front of my bench. And I looked up, and there's this guy, long blonde hair, looked like, I guess, a young Tom Petty, black coat, white shirt, black trousers. He just said, "Woody," he said, "I'm Mick Ronson." I said, "Yeah, I know you are." He said, this is the band, the Rats, and introduce everybody. We want you to be our drummer." And they were the band,
So by that point, you must have had somewhat of a reputation.
Yeah, it had built up. I was getting to a point where I knew I was good.
How long were you with the Roadrunners before you started to feel confident?
Probably a couple of years. A couple of years playing and still practicing at home on cushions, basically. The armchair and cushions.
What was your parents' stance during this time?
They just thought it was a passing phase. It's, you know what I mean? It's something.
You were having your fun, and then you'll be back to plumbing toilets soon.
And then in this factory, what happened was I got so bored doing my job, I could do it really easy. And
What was your job?
It was taking a square of plastic that had been laminated together in so many colours, different colours, and then drilling holes, and then using a machine to cut the eyes out for glasses, spectacles.
Wow.
And then shaping it and angling it on this wheel and making the fancy glasses. So I did that. But me and my mate who did it as well were so quick we'd run out of work, so I'd just be bored. So I'd just go around all the other machinery and chat to the people, and they'd have problems with their machinery, and they were all on bonuses. So if the machine stopped, they were losing money. So I'd go, I can fix this. And I'd fix the machine, and then the next one. And I ended up walking around the factory most of the time, sorting out the machinery. Which I just did it because it was nice to chat with people.
It's probably more stimulating than just doing the drilling.
It was. And then one day the owner of the factory came and said, "We want you to be the under foreman You're the only one that knows how to set the whole factory up. So I was like, really? I didn't know there was guys.
So you could have just wound up working there for your whole life.
Yeah. They said, we'll get you a car, we'll get you a house and all that. You'll have holidays and blah, blah, blah. And I went, oh, wow. So they said, let us know on Monday. You won't be able to play music, though, because we know you sneak in the back door every morning. You come in late, because I'd been out playing the night before. So I was like, okay. My parents were like, wow, he's got this fantastic job, and relatives were like that. You're set up for life, kid, and all that.
So proud of you.
Yeah, it was. That was the only proud moment.
Then you broke their hearts.
And then that weekend I got a call from David Bowie.
So were you playing with the Rats?
I was playing with the Rats, and then the Rats split up.
And David knew Mick?
And the drummer that I'd replaced in the Rats was the one that went down to London from Hull. You in those days, I guess like the Beatles, you couldn't make it and stay in Liverpool.
Right.
So you had to make that jump, And he'd done that, this drummer. And he was playing in a band called Junior's Eyes. That actually, two of them wrote I Am Sailing for Rod Stewart. So they were decent musicians. And David was at that point, make that move from a folk guitarist to having a band and being a rock band, basically. And what happened was he said, I don't like what the guitar's doing. It's a bit too country for me. It's a bit too... And the drummer said, I know this guitarist in Hull called Mick Ronson who plays like Hendrix, Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, you name it. He can do all that stuff, So Mick went down, and a couple of months later, then David phoned, and it was that weekend.
Really?
Yeah, and so he said, Mick says you're really good and you'd fit in well and you get on with us and all that. I'm going to be doing an album. I've got a house in Beckenham in Kent. You don't have to worry about food or rent, and we're just going to have fun and do this album. So I was like, oh my God.
And which album was that?
That was The Man Who Sold the World.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I basically went home and sat all weekend, I was like, and it was 50-50.
Because David wasn't a massive star.
No, he wasn't.
At that point.
I mean, I'd heard Space Oddity probably on the local jukebox, maybe twice, and because it didn't have heavy drums on it, it didn't do anything to me. I wasn't really receptive to.
But if you were to merely play the odds, you would have taken the factory job because you're set for life.
Yeah.
Here you have an opportunity to go play with this guy who's had, a semi-hit.
Yeah.
And who knows what'll happen.
Yeah. I mean, it was a difficult decision. Oh, for me it was anyway. And I actually sat there, and it was the Sunday. I was still sitting there in the lounge, and the TV was on, and I'm thinking, okay, you're 67 years old. You've just had your holiday this year. You've got a new car on the driveway. Nice house. It's all done up how you like it. The grandkids are sitting around. I was just creating
Seeing
this whole
whole
scene.
life. Yes.
And then this band, as I was doing that, there was a band on the TV, and I looked, and I kind of said to one of my grandkids, when I was 16, I could have. Whoa.
Could have played with that band.
And it just, everything went on freeze. It just paused. And I just went, whoa, that would be my life. That I will do that. That will all occur. How boring.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? That's not the life that I want. I don't want to know
There's no
what's happening.
I
don't want I want unpredictabilities. I want challenges. I want problems. But most of all, something that I get up in the morning and go, I'm going to work and I love it, but not even work. It's like I want to do something that I actually love and do my best at it. Give it my all, not something that I have to clock in and clock out. That was me. That was how I looked at it. So I just went, that's it. I'm doing it. And I thought, yeah, but my friends are going to miss me type thing. They'd said, oh, you'd be away from us and all that. My parents didn't like the idea. And I thought, well, even if I come back to my hometown, with all my shirt ripped to shreds and my knees out, scrubbed, bruised, cut and battered and skinny from no food. And they went, "We told you, idiot, not to do it." I would just give them a sign with my hand and go, "Yeah, but I tried."
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I thought it's better to try and go for it. And so you fail. And I kept that kind of attitude all the way through. So you fail. So what?
Mm-hmm.
You know, who says failing is such a big deal? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
it's not. It's just
important to fail.
we
That's
agree.
how you learn, right?
Yeah, but we agree that, you know, if you don't make it, it's bad. But so what? So you fail at something. Good, you get up and do it again. Do you know what I mean? It's like, have another go. Figure out why you failed and have another go. Jump back in again.
But you didn't fail.
No, I didn't fail.
This episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by Collectivo Coffee, handmade coffee since 1993. Check them out online at collectivo.com.
So tell me about how that album came together. You were working with Tony Visconti on it.
Yeah, Tony was living with us in the same house.
And was he playing bass on it as well?
Yeah, he played bass.
Yeah. Which that album has some fantastic bass lines
It does,
too,
yeah.
and drum parts. But how did everything come together? How did the chemistry develop?
It was probably a little slow to start with because he was American, and you know, we were Yorkshire and Bowie was London, so there was a little bit of a barriers there. The Tony didn't really know what kind of bass playing to do, so Mick just gave him Jack Bruce albums and Cream albums and that, and just said, learn all that, and you'll develop a style. So he did. Good on him, you know. He just went and learned how to play like that.
And at that point, he'd already been over here working with T-Rex,
Yeah,
correct?
he'd done a little bit with T-Rex. He'd done a bit with the Moody Blues, quite a few bands actually, his production things. And we had a cellar under the house.
This was David's house?
Yeah, we soundproofed it out. It was like the cave. It was smelly and damp. So we soundproofed it out and we'd set up in there, and it was only about, 10 feet by 5 feet. You could just get everybody in, you know. And Mick never learned to turn down. He just never did, full on. So he had his Marshall stack full on, and you just went in there and blasted out, you know. We didn't get that much together in there, but we learned to play with each other, basically. And probably, I think we did a few of David's older things, but it wasn't particularly heavy stuff. And then when we got in the studio, we set up like a live band, basically, across the studio floor.
No headphones?
No, and just put the mic in the front for David. And he just got married to Angie. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the time he was in the reception area, kind of kissing and cuddling with Angie. And we were trying to get, and he'd come and he'd go, I've got, you know, well, what's the melody? I haven't done that yet. What's it about? I don't know. So we got that, and then this bit, he would go, then this bit, and he'd go, okay. So Mick and Tony were really good at piecing things together. So they would kind of do a jigsaw thing of it, and we'd start playing, and then Tony would go, oh, that bit's really good, let's repeat that bit. And then I'd go, I like the bit where it goes blah. So we'd all throw ideas in, and then we'd end up with a backing track with the chords. And then Tony would drag David in and go, you need to write this song, you know. He said, 20 minutes later, he would have it written.
Uh-huh.
It would be done, and he'd stand in front and sing and go, "Oh, that sounds good." Why didn't you say you were that quick? No, this is our first time in a big studio, so to us, everything for Mick and I was new. It was all, didn't know how it really worked.
It almost seems like for David, hanging out in the lobby was part of the process. It's almost like subconsciously the song was coming together piece by piece.
No, I think he probably
Or
would
he was just
rather be
fucking off.
loved. Yeah, yeah, all that. And then sometimes he'd come and go, "Oh, this is one, ding, digga, ding, digga, ding, digga," and he'd go, "Well, what's it called again?" And he'd go, "The Cyclops."
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And it turned out it wasn't called the Cyclops. It was Supermen.
Yeah.
But at least you got some concept that was close to it. Right, big thundering drums and whatever, and we just pieced it all together. And then it got into like, this is our Sergeant Pepper's album. Progressive rock, but Sergeant Peppery. And everything. But I think there was a kitchen sink on it in the end. It just... we brought Moog synthesizer in, which was about the size of a council flat, with all these
the modular synth. Yeah. When that album was released, and started to sell, did you feel successful?
No.
Why not?
Well, it was like, I think that there's something that happens. Well, it happened to me, and I've mentioned it to a few other musicians. When you first take that step from being a semi-pro musician to going, I am now a professional musician, there's something happens to your playing and everything and your confidence that you don't particularly get from just practicing. You don't get it from that. You get it from I guess it's that I am. Do you know what I mean?
The identity.
That gets bigger, and you're like, I am, and there's no doubt about that. I am blah. I can't remember what I was, but do you know what I mean? That was really in. So just the fact we'd done it, I'd never heard myself back through big speakers in a studio before. In fact, I'd never heard myself.
Did you like it?
Yeah. There was a few bits I went, won't be doing that fill again.
Yeah.
Won't be doing that drum roll, But generally, I thought, wow, that sounds good, and I've got good time sense, and sounds that one does work, things like that. And we'd actually left David when that album eventually came out. Mick and I had left him.
Why?
This is a first. I've never said this anywhere, but we were doing one track on that album, Black Country Rock, and he went into. At the end of it, he went into singing like Mark Bolan.
David did.
Yeah, and we just went, okay, I cannot go on stage if he's going to do that behind. I cannot play behind that.
If he's going to be ripping off Mark Bolan.
He was going,
Yeah.
And it was just, it's silly now looking at it, but it was a big thing because we never followed the pop charts particularly. Do you know what I mean?
You thought of yourself more as like a underground, or more of a connoisseur, a blues connoisseur?
Yeah, the Hendrix, Zeppelin, Cream, Free, all those bands, so the pop charts were not, they were mainly...
And T-Rex was you thought of them as a pop band.
Yeah, it was that pretentiousness. It was pretentious, and I guess he couldn't really play. That sounds really bad, doesn't it? But he could play, obviously, but not. It was pretentious.
That wasn't the point.
No,
right?
it was probably the beingness, the whole identity of it, that was not. No.
Well, when I hear David's voice, he has all these different voices that he does.
Yeah.
He has his high register, and then especially in his low register, I hear a lot of Scott Walker and what he's doing.
Yeah, definitely. But it's not that obvious, though. Is it? It's not like, oh, he's ripping off.
No.
This was that.
Some say the view is crazy, but you may adopt another point of view. So if it's much too hazy, you can't leave my friend and me with fun to do.
The Trap Set will always be available for free, but we rely on donations from our listeners. Please visit our website at thetrapset.net and click donate. Subscribe to our show on iTunes, and if you enjoy what you hear, give us a review.
I mean, he said, I want the gang thing. I want it to be a band. So we all look like we're on the same page. And but the nearest we got to it was the Droogs from Clockwork Orange.
Right.
Which we were all into that film. We always liked that film. So that was a reality point for us, But he said it's a bit heavy, be a bit too heavy in white boiler suits. And I'm not sure if Townsend had done that then. He might have done in The Who, not sure. So we're having pastel colour, and I thought pastels was something like wine gums. I didn't go to art school again, so I didn't know what a pastel was. So it was pink, pastel, blue and gold. And Angie went, yeah, well, Mick would look good in gold because he's got blonde hair. And I'm like, oh, yeah, totally, that'll work, Trevor in blue because he's got dark black hair. Oh, yeah, that'll really work. But I knew blue and black worked together. When I looked at the table and there's just this pink material there. And I just went, pink? And Bowie went, yeah, but it takes a real man to wear
Have you
pink.
seen Reservoir Dogs?
Yes, yeah.
Why do I have to be Mr. Pink?
Yeah, it was a bit like that. So I fell for it and did it. And the makeup was the same. We hadn't seen makeup. Did our first, when Starman came out, the first TV thing, and we were all kind of brushing our hair and looking cool, before we go on. And he pulls out this big bag with all these brushes and things of powder and what looked like lipstick and all sorts. And we just kind of stopped midstream, and he goes, he didn't bat an eyelid, he just kept putting what I now know was like pan stick or something on. He said, you boys not wearing makeup? And he got 3 answers all at once that I can't repeat. And we went, no, basically. He said, oh, that's a shame. And he just kept putting it on. He said, you haven't performed under these bright TV lights before, and it has a tendency to suck all the features out of your face. So you'll either look a bit ill and green, or you won't be able to tell who you are.
Was there ever a moment where you just took stock of your life and you were like, what am I doing here? I'm from the north of England, and now here I am doing this.
No, not really. I guess we got used to the bizarre. Do you know what I mean? You had Andy Warhol's lot came and were our entourage. So once you've hung out with them in England, New York and Japan, then you're pretty much up for anything,
Who came over with Andy? Edie Sedgwick?
Cherry Vanilla, but they got us up in the morning, so you'd be in your hotel. We'd usually have a suite with so many bedrooms, and you'd hear them knocking on the door. Come on, boys, Don't they know you'd rather be with the boy than that girl you've got in there? And we'd go, shout abuse at him. But it was funny. It was like every morning he had a different line, It was hilarious. Embarrassing sometimes. You had to go, honest,
When you were in the midst of this, did you think about yourself at 67 again and think that you would still be on stage playing with a rock band?
No, not really, because he was so busy. Do you know what I mean? You were doing an album, and then 2 weeks later you were doing another album. Like you did Hunky Dory, then you did Aladdin, then you did Ziggy. Then you took putting a stage show together, so you got 2 weeks solid rehearsal, and you're running through the show 3 times a day. And you're just like at it. Then you're doing radio, then you're doing whistle test radio, TV show in this country, going shopping for clothes, sorting your drums out. You were continually busy, so you never really had time to think.
Did you get to a point where you felt like you were a wealthy man?
Potentially, we'd had discussions in the clubs and that when we were out partying, and he would say to us, so you're going to be like millionaires. You know what I mean? You're going to have to get used to that. And we were like, good.
Yeah.
Good, I'll handle that when it comes, you know. But
And did
you
it
got,
come?
The thing is, no. The thing is, you got everything you wanted.
Right.
You got any clothes that you wanted, shoes you wanted. You ate in the best restaurants in every
Women,
city.
yeah.
The women, the travel, the sports things that you wanted to do on tours, like whether it was golf or archery or taking a speedboat out, anything that you could think of, you got to do it, and it never cost you. You did your Christmas shopping at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you didn't have time to go into LA to do anything, so you bought everything there. Oh, that'll go for massive bill. I think we did like something like 40 grand in a week. Do you know what I mean? That was back then.
Yeah.
And we had a guy on the road whose sole job was to find the best restaurant in a city, and he'd just book 4 seats in a restaurant. So before the gig, we went to have the best meal you could have in that city. So you were living in this bubble, really. You didn't get time to read newspapers or know what was happening in England if you were in America, or you didn't really know what was happening. You were just doing rock and roll, partying, sound check. Blah, 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 blah.
So what happened when the bubble burst?
I went to art school. No, I didn't. Well, I should have gone to art school. No, that was a hard bit. I guess the main thing is all of a sudden, after so many years of living in each other's company, you tend to, you didn't have mobile phones back then. So it's not like you kept in touch with friends in England and whatever. It was a major thing to do that, and you probably didn't have flipping time or think about it. So they're your family and your career and your job and everything all in this bubble. And then when it's finished, you're like, ugh, somebody's just pulled the magic carpet from under your feet, and you're falling basically through the blackness. It was pretty dark.
How did that manifest in your life? What did you do?
Well, it happened in public. It happened at the last Ziggy gig where he said, "This is the last gig we'll ever do." And we were like, what did he say?
So
What
it
did he
came,
say,
it came
Trev?
as a surprise?
Yeah.
You didn't have any sort of feeling that there's distance growing between you?
There was distance, but, not enough to make you think to that degree. It was more, I'd noticed the Ziggy character when we first toured. He'd put it on, took him an hour and a half to put it on, went on, did the show, came off, we all got kind of washed off and whatever, and we went out partying and we had a laugh, and it was mates together with a couple of road crew and a bodyguard and whatever. You could go anywhere, do anything, have a great night. And we chatted about everything, and then I noticed that he'd put the makeup on, put the clothes on and all that. He'd go on, do the gig. He'd come off. He had an interview to do. He was still Ziggy. Then he had a radio thing to do and something else, still Ziggy. And then he got in the taxi with you or in the limo with you back to the hotel. You said, blah, 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 whatever, Dave, and he'd go, and he'd just look at you, like with a Ziggy look. And you think, whoa, whoa, what's happening?
Right.
And you go, maybe you didn't hear me, So did you see that film, blah, 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 last night? It was really cool, it was. And he would not answer, but he'd look straight through, right at you. And it was that Ziggy look was quite formidable, And you think, oh, okay, he's not going to answer me, So you learnt to deal with that. You had to, what do you talk to Ziggy Stardust about? Whoa, it's a fictional character. So you're all the time trying to find a communication line through to him.
Right, so you went from watching your friend, create this character and then become the character.
Yeah.
And when he announced that on stage, this is the last show we'll ever do, then what was the conversation after that?
Well, Trevor and I were like, did he actually say that? I think he did, yeah, and we were trying to get hold of him, and there was so many. We had a party after that gig, so there was so many people from Jagger, Ringo, Jeff Beck, Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, just you name it, they were in all around this table. You could not have a conversation. You could not talk anything serious, you know. So it was days later when we kind of finally found out that
Through David or through the management?
through the management, saying, no, that is it. You stopped doing the Ziggy thing, and you won't be going to France to do the Pin-Ups was the next album, you know. I mean, I had already kind of said I didn't think Pin-Ups was a good idea,
Yeah.
which was probably not a good thing to say. I thought it was more a fill-in, you know, which was fine, but it wasn't really up there with what he was supposed to be doing, I thought. And he'd talked to me about doing a funk thing, doing a soul thing. And he said, and I see you, Mick and Trevor, all dressed in black, stood in the shadows, and nobody quite knows who was there. And I was like, I can't see that happening somehow. You've pulled us out of the shadows, dressed us up, put
In
makeup
pastel,
on,
yeah.
smacked us on the back and said, get in the spotlight, you know.
You had gotten used to the pink by then.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, so there was some pretty weird things going on. Do you know what I mean? So, and then at the time when he said it, I thought, okay, maybe it's just a publicity stunt, you know, because he was pretty good at coming out with one-liners or just doing, we're going to do blah. And you'd go, oh, God.
Yeah.
You know, get used to it. Or we'd found if we went, oh, fantastic, if it was something we didn't want to do, we would go, fantastic, and we'd start, and he'd go, you'd never hear of it again.
Yeah.
He would just go the opposite. So we'd learnt that one. But if we went, oh, I don't want to do that, he definitely did it. So I thought it was that. It was just doing a big withdrawal from the public, you know. And also, maybe he'd actually had enough of it. You know, we'd done 187 concerts, and we used to do 2 shows in a day for like a week, and then we did that quite a bit across America and England. And it was tiring, do you know what I mean? You got back to your flat, and you put your bags down. I remember once I think the Spiders just sat down with our bags in our hands, and we woke up 2 days later going, what day is it?
Yeah.
We'd been there 2 days. We were that exhausted, you know.
Ziggy played guitar, jamming good with Weird and Gilly and the Spiders from Mars. They played it left hand.
Well, when it turned out that, in fact, the band was over, what was your next step?
What am I going to do, basically? I got a couple of jobs offered and stupidly turned down because I guess it took a bit for that whole scene to calm down for me. Do you know what I mean? You were still in the bubble part. You were trying to get the last bit of you out of the bubble. It was still in this bubble that you'd been in.
Yes.
So you're going like, okay, what am I going to do? You know, well, play with who? There was a gig with McCartney. We was putting Wings together, and and I still hadn't been paid. Although we had everything we wanted on the road, I still didn't have a big bank account. So I think I was down to about $3,000 or something like that, and so we were pretty tight. And his secretary, who I happened to know, rang up and said he's putting a band together, and he asked if I'd give you a ring, and he wants you to come down and play bloody blah, because he's putting this band together called, I think it's going to be called Wings, she said. And I said, okay, I'll ring you back, you know. And I never rang back, you know. And I look back now and I go, why didn't I? Do you know what I mean? Why?
Well, what's the answer? I mean, did it just...
The answer was, it was a bit of, hang on, I'm still reeling a bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm still reeling a bit from what I've just been through. My two best mates now are still in that band doing that. Do I want to put myself back in? I looked at anybody else that I could join. I saw them all being the same, and I definitely didn't want to step into the same situation again. Do you know what I mean? As it was at the end of the Bowie thing, and I wrongly looked at that, thinking it's probably the same. It's probably, do you know what I mean? It's probably nutty and wild and I've kind of, now that I've got my leg out of the bubble and had a look, there's a sane existence out there. There is a sane thing when you're out the bubble, you know, and it looks quite inviting. I mean, I used to look for girls on tours that had never been to a concert before, but they were there because their uncle worked for a record company or something, and they'd got, you know, and I'd go...
You wanted to be with ordinary people.
Yeah, and I'd go, and so I'd go, do you want to go and get a coffee and a cheese sandwich? Rather than these flashy restaurants and things. Just go and have a cheese sandwich or something. Oh, yeah. And I'd have a really good time just chatting with somebody normal.
Cheese sandwich girls.
Yeah.
How did you kind of craft an identity for yourself once you got out of the bubble all the way?
I remember walking down, you know, where I now live, and I'd grown out the blonde hair, and up to that point, still couldn't go shopping and go on Oxford Street, things like that. I'd spend like 2 hours signing autographs or whatever, you know. But now my hair had grown out, nobody noticed me. And I went, okay, so that's definitely gone. Do you know what I mean? It was like, that's definitely ended. So it was like, what do you want to do? And I thought, okay, well, I better... I'd done another album with Trevor, the bass player, because he left the Bowie thing after me. Well, they both did, actually. Mick did as well. So we'd done an album. We did a little bit of touring, but it wasn't quite right. So it was like, okay, what now? Okay, well, I better put my own thing together. And I thought, well, it took me 5 years to tune a guitar. But what the heck, you know. So I got the guitar, and just one Sunday, I happened to put it in tune and realise it was in tune. That's how I used to do it on tour, and Mick would say, for God's sake, give me it here and let me tune it for you. I finally had it in tune, and I just started writing. I'd never written before. And the first one I wrote, we kind of did a demo of it, and I wrote a few more. And this record company heard that one song and went, that's a hit, we'll sign you. And I went to myself and others, it's not a hit, but I'm not going to tell them. You know what I mean?
Which song was it?
It was a song called Ooh La La. It was one of... I do have a knack for writing something that sounds to most people like it is a hit. But only I know it's not, which is really weird. It's a really weird ability. Should have gone to art school again, yeah.
Sandra thinks she's a lady's chest. She makes sure they're in view. Freddie's being a mild kid, you know, goes to the highest bidder. Leslie's wearing a nice hairdo, in good condition for you. Seducer Sally's sexy eyes, just watch them sparkle to woo you. I know it's hard.
When did you get married?
In 73, about 4 days after the last gig at Hammersmith. And I got the call that I was out the band 10 minutes after I got married.
Really?
Yeah. It's an adventurous life. I was just thinking of a film, basically, for future life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got to have all these moments
I-
where people
I'm
go, I
suspicious.
don't believe that.
Yeah, it
How would
almost seems
somebody
like
do that to
you're
you?
remembering it differently than it possibly could have happened. It's so
No,
neat.
it's
like a
true.
plot. Did you have children right away?
In 75, first one.
Are they musicians?
Two of them are, yeah. In fact, they all are, but one's chosen to do into the video world. He's a really good videographer.
Did you ever expand into other things besides just playing? Did you start producing or
A
working
little
in
bit
other
of production,
discipline?
but wasn't really my thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I found it really hard to listen to another drummer playing the song when I knew better, and you couldn't. Do you know what I mean? There was a certain, you can't really go in and show the drummer exactly what to play type thing.
Right.
I didn't think it was right, you know, so I found that hard. And I got, what did I get into? I got into poetry, which hasn't come out yet. It's still in the closet.
All right, let's hear it. What do you got?
I wish I'd have brought some.
Didn't you bring a book with you? Notebook?
No, that's not it.
Oh, okay.
No. And a little bit of acting, a little bit of TV adverts and things like that.
What did you feel like you had to kind of pull together lots of different gigs, like most working drummers do, in order to support your family?
No, I didn't really do that. It's not something I wanted to be. It didn't suit my. I'd rather sit for 6 months with not a lot than end up doing music that I don't really like with people I don't really get on with or not on the same page or what.
Yeah.
It was always I guess a special thing to me, something that I really had a passion about.
Right.
To be able to pull it off, to be able to do it.
Right.
You know.
It's like
I did a drum thing with my two sons. They were both drummers, and so we opened up a lot of big conventions. 3 drum kits, no other music at first, just drums, but drilled. We used to drill for weeks to get every part spot on, and it was good. It was good. When I got to teach my kids, I thought a friend of mine was a guitarist. And his kid wanted to be a guitarist. So he'd bought him a guitar for Christmas. And this is the guy telling me. He said he was in his room and he was really excited with this guitar. I could see him in the mirror and all that. And I thought, oh, great. This guy was a bass player. This guy, his son was a guitarist. But he said he would play in through this amp that I'd bought him. And it was all out of tune. He said I'd go in and grab it off him and tune it up for him. And he said I didn't realise it was kind of his thing, you know, and it was wrong of me to go and tune it up and show him how to play chords and things like that.
Right.
And he said one day I walked in and he just screamed at me, held the guitar over his head and threw it at the wall and smashed it to bits. And I thought, whoa, interesting.
Yeah.
You know, if my old man had done that to me, I would have probably not been a drummer. If he said, oh, you do it like this, kid, hold your sticks like this, do that, you know, I'd have probably gone, you know what I mean?
Right,
It
because
was
it was
my
your thing.
Yeah, it was my thing.
And
Let
also,
me-
I feel like when you first play, you have to be somewhat oblivious
yeah.
to how bad you are.
Yeah.
so
oh,
that you
terrible.
can enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, we did gigs. My first gig ever was in front of a girls' school. We were the only 5 guys had ever been in that girls' school. It was a Christmas dance. They had, you know, the boys' school's got a pop band, you know, a pop group. Would they come and play at the Christmas party? And we did, and it was horrendous. It was a horrible noise, but they loved it. And we thought we were, we thought we were incredible, but it was actually atrocious. You know, my tom-tom fell off, 2 cymbals hit the floor. I fell off backwards off the stool. The whole audience had to wait for me to set my kit back up, basically. Do you know what I mean?
So did you?
So with my
essentially,
kids,
with your kids, you
with
let
my
them.
kids,
You
I
let
just
them,
went, I'm not going near it.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait for questions. I'm not even going to suggest they be drummers. And then one day my eldest came up to me and just went, what's that cymbal thing you do with your foot? And I went, that's called a hi-hat. Oh, and he walked off, playing, you know. Then he'd come back and go, so what's the other one called? That's a bass drum. This does that, you know. Oh, so how do you make that hand do that? Showed him a little bit. He was off. That was it. That's really all I ever did.
Don't believe in yourself. Don't deceive with belief. Knowledge comes with death's release. Don't believe in yourself. Don't deceive with belief. Knowledge comes with death's release.
Well, so I know that over the last few years you've been doing gigs with the Spiders from Mars again.
Yeah, with
Tony.
Holy Holy. Yeah,
Yeah.
with Tony Visconti and Glenn Gregory and Bob Geldof's lead guitarist, Paul Cuddaford, and yeah.
What was the impetus to do that?
It was an accident. I kicked a ball over this tractor and it no. No, I got called up by the financial director of the, what was it, the on the Mall, it was for the Festival for the Contemporary Arts or something, quite kind of snooty.
Yes.
I thought it was, this thing, you know. Institute of Contemporary Arts. And they said, would you come and be interviewed in front of 300 people live? We think it would be really good. And I'd never done that kind of a thing. So I said, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm any good at that. I don't know if I'd like it. I don't know if I can talk that much, whatever.
You're good at it.
So anyway, I thought, well, the worst is they walk out and say that was crap, you know. So I decided to do it. And I had a really good night. 300 people, some good questions. And they'd put a band together at the Institute with Steve Norman from Spandau Ballet, a whole Clem Burke from Blondie,
Sure.
and blah, 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 and they were doing a festival, the Latitude Festival, and I'd never met any of them, and we really hit it off. And they said, "Why don't you come and do a couple of songs? We're doing all your songs anyway. Pick a couple, come to the festival and do it." So I went, "Yeah, okay." I think I did Ziggy and 5 Years. And I was just amazed watching the audiences get off on the rest of the set as well, you know. I'd not seen those tracks played like that for all those years. And the hard bit was watching Clem Burke play on my parts. I just wanted to walk up and smack him one,
Yeah,
throw him off and go, get off. But he was a good mate, and he's a good drummer anyway.
Yeah, he's great.
And
I'll
then-
kick him in the nuts for you.
Yeah,
next
do
time I
that,
see him.
yeah. And then I think there were so many offers came in from that one gig. They wanted to carry on. And Clem had a tour with Blondie came up. So they came back to me and said, look, would you be the drummer in your own band?
How did it feel?
It was interesting.
What was it?
I mean, yeah, I've changed a lot as a drummer.
Yeah.
My playing's changed a lot. And we'd never, initially we just did the Ziggy Hunky Dory kind of ones. And then I thought, no, I don't just want to do this. It feels really odd.
Yeah.
We never did The Man Who Sold the World with David. It never happened. We never once did that album
Because
live.
you made Hunky Dory right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because there was management things, no money and blah, blah, blah.
What did you ever think of the Nirvana cover, by the way?
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
It cheesed off David a bit, though, because somebody said it the other way around. So you did a Nirvana song. They asked him, he went, no, I wrote the bloody thing. It was good. It was good doing that album. I mean, when I first thought of doing it, I thought, I got to get Tony on bass, but he probably won't do it, you know, because he's got so much production and blah, blah, blah. And the minute I'd finished talking to him, he just said, wherever you're doing it, I'll be there. Whatever you want, I'll do it.
Great.
I went, how come I thought it would take me about an hour? And he said, no. He said, David and I have spoke over the years about that album. And it's one regret that we never went out and did it live, you know. So it was always on my bucket list to do.
Were you in touch with David before he passed?
Emails wise, and day and a half before. Tony knew he was ill, but he thought he'd got through it because Tony had been doing Black Star and whatever else. And we talked about it. I said he doesn't seem as well. Tony was like, yeah, well, he did have this and he had that and he's got through all that. So we kind of relaxed on it, and then we were playing the East Coast tour, and we got to the gig, and all the staff and the bouncers and whatever else, the security was saying, we think David's coming down to sing with you. And we went, well, we haven't heard anything, you know, he's welcome to if he wants to. And got halfway through the concert, obviously, and he hadn't turned up. So Tony came up to me on the kit and he went, I'm going to phone David. So I went, oh yeah, do that, you know. So we phoned him up and he answered. He said, we're just down the road from you in New York, and we just played, I can't remember what number it was. And then we realised it was his birthday. So we got the audience to sing happy birthday and held the phone up. Tony held the phone up. And he said, oh, that was really nice. Asked the audience what they think to Black Star. And they went mental. He said, oh, great, you know. He said, anyway, thanks for ringing. He said, good luck with the tour and I'll catch you later. So we were that was our first gig in America. So we were like, oh, that was really nice. Do you know what I mean? It was a nice acknowledgement, and the fact that he answered it and spoke to the audience. And then Toronto was the next gig, and about 5 in the morning, my phone was whizzing around the table. Just so many calls on it. And I eventually picked it up, and it was from my son in England, and he said, I've just heard on the news, David just died. So 5 in the morning, you're like, what? It was like surreal, you know. So we had to get everybody up at 5 in the morning and go, what the heck are we going to do? Out of respect, do we pull the tour? I think we had 12 dates to do there. And Tony said, well, even though I didn't know David was that ill, he worked, you know, right to the end on the musical and on the album. And he said he would do 2 hours work, have 2 hours sleep, do a few more hours sleep. He worked, and he said he just kept going. And I said, well, he was the same, you know, to some degree. He always had that attitude, you know, on the Ziggy tours, when you're doing 2 shows a day. He didn't do it easily, and he wasn't eating well, and he was really thin and emaciated sometimes. So if there was any bugs around, he got them. So he'd have flu, and he'd be talking to you, and you go, you look like terrible. Do we pull the show? And he'd go, no. And you go, but you can't sing like that. Look at you, you know. And he'd go, the show must go on. We said, we're playing. And we would do it. And for that hour and a quarter, you wouldn't know he was ill. And he'd come off and just collapse. And so we all went, the show must go on. That was his attitude. So we're going to do that, you know. And it was good. I mean, it was different, because the next audiences that were there knew he'd gone, obviously. And you'd have sort of a dozen rows of tissues and people hugging and crying, and you think, God, we're supposed to do a concert, you know. So, you know, Tony said, look, the best way through the grief of it is music, and his music, you know. And it kind of brought it up a little bit, you know. And then I just swore, I just let rip and said, you know, it's not a funeral, you know. It's a celebration of him and his life, and he'd want you to have a good night, do you know what I mean? So let's remember it as that, and swore some more, and it kind of lifted the whole thing. And they were good nights, you know.
What do you want to do moving into the future?
Into the future? I'm actually looking for another band at the moment. I'll either make one or join one, I don't know which. I've kind of been a band called Rival Sons. sons from LA have kind of reminded me of something that I always liked. So it's kind of done a full circle, really. I've gone back to basic rock and roll, is what I really enjoy the drummer.
You want to go back to the cave.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Miley. Is it Miley? It is Miley, isn't it? Fantastic drummer. And I just love the band. So anything in that kind of a direction. I mean, it's basic rock and roll, basically, without any flowery bits. And I'm looking at doing maybe some drum featured stuff, but I haven't quite got that worked out yet. It's quite a bit since there's been a drum featured thing that communicates. There's a lot of technical things out there, but they only communicate. I don't just want to play to drummers, do you know what I mean?
Right. That's basically just athletics.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Woody Woodmansey, thank you so much for being part of the show.
My pleasure.
The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.